morning, everybody. It's a little chilly this morning, I have to say. How are you, Taylor?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, cold but good. Living in
Yep.
week 4 of construction, so if you hear a little background noise, sorry about that. I'll just apologize ahead of time.
Your camera's pretty good. We normally don't hear too much, so
Yeah, we on my last class, they were literally cutting the bathtub in half to get it out of the bathroom. So if you didn't hear that, I think we're good.
yeah. Yep. All
So
right.
we'll
Well, good morning. Looks like we have a decent amount of people on. We had a lot of people register for today's class. So um, my name is Taylor. I do our communications and our photography information here, as well as our photography program here at the MLS. I have been with my Real Source now for, I think, 12 years. And my co-host, co-teacher is Colleen. We teach several classes together, but do you want to say a little something about yourself, Colleen?
Yes, I'm seeing a lot of great familiar names. I am the Director of Education here at my Real Source. This is actually one of my favorite classes to teach with you, Taylor. And I've also been a Realtor for 26 years now. So I actually practice what I preach. And so a lot of the tools that we're going to be showing you are actually things that I use all the time. So I'm excited to go forward and show you. Plus, well, the big thing is we get to show you 3 brand new things today, brand new, like fresh out of the oven new. And I'm excited to show those off today too.
Yep. Yeah. So this class is create a listing from A to Z, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So Colleen's going to take the first half of the class. I'm going to take the second half of the class, but one of us will always be behind the scenes answering questions. So we want this to be an interactive experience, kind of like it would be if we were actually in a classroom together, not some recording that, you can't really talk to real people here. You can. So go ahead and ask questions. I will be able to answer them directly to you, or if I feel like it's something that needs to be repeated, or maybe Colleen, something that the whole group would really benefit from, I will interject, or Colleen will interject during our session that we're taking on. But yeah, so everything in this class is going to be what you need once you are trying to get the listing, how to properly price the listing and put it into the MLS, all the way to promoting it in the end and monitoring that listing and how it's performing. So I'm gonna put in the chat, you guys should see, Colleen's gonna show you guys how to find this as well, but just so you have the quick links to do it, I put a link to our YouTube channel. That's where you can find recorded classes on all of our products, but this one will also be there, as well as previous ones that we've done. And then I also added a link to our list of our education corner that Colleen creates and keeps up to date really, really well. So you can see what's coming up for webinars that you can sign up for in the current quarter. But yeah, so she's going to show you guys how to find that too.
All right. I guess we can start off there. That sounds like a good intro. All right, and as Taylor mentioned, feel free to type in any questions as we go forward today. We are going to cover a whole lot. I mean, we are literally going to cover A to Z. We're going to touch on a bunch of different products, but I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, because remember, there's a hands-on class for every single product that we're going to show you. So we're going to show you a bunch of different things at kind of a high level, but if you're looking for, hey, I need the extra hand holding, I want to see how to do that from step A to step Z for that particular product, you can now attend our hybrid classroom, which means you can actually come in and we can actually assist you if you're in our area, or if you want to continue to come in via webinar, you can attend the classes that way. So I'm excited. We just opened up our brand new hybrid classroom, and it is really nice, at least for me as an agent. Sometimes I have extra questions about, how do I download this app and how do I do my scan? And sometimes somebody standing next to you, walking you through that. So that's why we have a hybrid classroom now. You can either come in person if you're in our area, or if you're with one of our vendored MLSs and maybe you're in the UP and you just want to come down for a quick vacation so it's not quite so snowy, you can do that too. So, but where you're going to find these classes and where you're going to find that education corner that Taylor just referenced is right under resources. So what we've tried to do is kind of build out I'm gonna shrink my GoToWebinar box, I can see it. We kind of wanted to build out an education section. We are recording this entire class. So if you have to step away, I know our good friend Wynn said she had a listing appointment or something coming up. And so if you have to step away, you can always go back to this class recording. It does take about 24 hours for us to get them uploaded, but you're going to find it right under education, recorded webinars. And what I tell people to do is literally just click on that videos tab. That's the easiest way to find all the classes. Maybe you wanted to see the mobile agent class. Maybe you want to see the brand new interface of the Collab Center. Cloud CMA just got a whole facelift in the interactive CMA. So all of that is there. All you have to do is simply scroll through, and as you can see, there's lots of classes, lots of great information. All you have to do is find the class that you're looking for, or this particular class, just look for the date afterward, and then you can fast forward to whatever you may have missed. So I know that was a question we already started out with today. Under resources, this is also where you can find that education corner. So if you want to come in, check out our new hybrid classroom, have a cup of coffee with us, all you have to do is go back to resources, the education corner, simply find the class you're interested in. What you'll see is one will say in person. That's if you want to come in person. We like people to register so we know how much coffee and donuts to have on hand. Or if you just want to come and you want to stay in your fuzzy slippers and you want to join via webinar, you can do that as well. So a lot of the classes you'll see more and more will have these two buttons, and then you can register for your preference. All right, so where we're going to start today is how to prepare for your new listing. As I mentioned in the beginning, though, we're going to show you 3 brand new products. One is still ongoing, and Taylor has worked so hard on it. So she's going to be showing the listing stats report that you now can send to your sellers. We're going to be covering reverse prospecting, getting more marketing out. I am amazed. I'm going to be honest, I hated reverse prospecting before. I've seen it in other MLSs. I never thought it was very good. I actually kind of found it annoying, but the new reverse prospecting is anything but that. I have to tell you, I've been very impressed with it. I'm getting more and more of them every day, so it's exciting. People are just starting to find out about it. And then last, we're going to talk about the price analysis tool. So if you do have a listing, maybe it's sitting a little bit longer. Let's face it, it's that time of year, right, where our sellers are saying, hey, how come my house isn't sold already? So these are going to be great tools that you can use on your listing. So where we're going to start, though, is we said it was going to be A to Z. So where do you start your prep work? So if you've got an upcoming listing appointment, the first thing you want to do is you want to do your homework, right? We want to show that we've got all the information to properly run the comps, to put all the data together and make this really wowing CMA. So where do we start? Well, a couple places. The first place I really want to go is I want to go to see if the property has been sold recently. So I just like to go to the power search up here. I like to simply type in the address. I'm going to use my trusty one that has all the good examples here. And I can see that, in fact, this particular property has been listed and closed 3 times. So I want to do a little homework, and that's where I really want to start today. So I'm going to click on the 3 listing records. Now, usually when it comes to preparing for my CMA, I'm probably only going to put in my CMA the last listing ticket because I want to know, what did that homeowner pay? But I might want to go into the previous ones and see, did it go into foreclosure? Why did it sell at that price? So I'm starting to build my my homework and trying to find the right comps and coming up with the right questions. I also want to properly educate the seller on what's going on right now today in their marketplace, exactly where they live. So I'm going to use things like the market stats, because one of the challenges I think we're all facing, at least in most areas, is if you have the seller for 5 years, they've heard that they're going to get record amount of showings, right? Record amount of offers. They're going to get, top dollar for. But what we're seeing in most areas is we're seeing a little bit of an evening off, right? We're not seeing 19 showings in 2 days like we did just 6 months ago. We're seeing a little bit slower showings. It's taking a little bit longer. So how do we educate the seller on that so they don't think it's you? Why aren't you getting exposure on my home? And how do we show that we actually are? So we're going to cover all of that. So the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the date, and I can see that this was our last closed record. So probably I'm going to start there because I'm going to want to pull this listing ticket into my CMA. I want to have that conversation. I see you bought it on this and this day. It looks like they closed on it. Looks like Ed Martin was their agent. I want to show that they closed on 5/6/22. This is what they paid. They had $2,000 concessions. I want to have all of that. The other thing I want to do is I want to go into the tax records and I want to see everything I can about this. And I can't stress this enough. There are times where I go into the tax records and I see there's a bunch of permits and I realize they may have had a fire. I mean, these are all questions that I want to ask. Just recently, about 5 months ago, I listed a house that had like 19 permits in it. I was a little kind of confused. And a lot of times that permit is there, but it's very limited information that you can actually see about what that permit pertained to. So I like to have those things right in my CMA so I can ask those questions. Turned out that they put $40,000 worth of hardscape and a beautiful circular built-in patio, and they had to have it inspected, and the different contractors had to have different permits because they put everything from a heated gas pit to under mounted lighting and the deck. It was amazing, but I wanted to know why did I see all these permits just from a few months ago? So the first thing I want to do is I want to go into those tax records. So there's two different ways to go into tax records, and there's basically two different systems. One is BS&A. I love BS&A because BS&A is the trusted live server. It's what a judge would actually look at if there was a legal situation that arose. Because BS&A is the actual assessor's record. When the assessor clicks paid, we use the live server so that right away you can see that that tax bill or whatever, or that assessment has been paid. That comes in really handy when you have an upcoming closing and you realize, oh my gosh, they did not pay their tax bill, or they didn't pay now you can even see outstanding water bills on many of the municipalities. So if we know we're closing in 2 days and that has to be paid, they can actually go down to the city assessor, pay it, they mark paid, and you can see that almost immediately. So that's very helpful when I can print that off and hand it right over to my title company. So how do you get that record? Well, if you are a My Real Source member, and I say that because we do have other vendor MLSs on our call, and every MLS can choose which products and services that they want to offer their members. So if you're coming in from a place like, let's say, the Upper Peninsula Association of Realtors, not a lot of BS&A record up there, so that might not be something that that particular MLS offers. So I just want to clarify. So for My Real Source members, the BS&A information is very good in our area. So that's where I'm going to start. And what we wanted to do was find a way to give back to our members. So if you know anything about BS&A, or if you've used it in the past, you know it keeps getting more and more expensive. Now, I have to say, I have a problem with this as an agent, and I think this is where we all, as an industry, should reach out to Michigan Realtors to try to get this changed. There are big things in our industry happening right now that we need to be able to go in and get proper tax records. And there's a big push for this, especially right now with the wholesaling that you're probably starting to hear a little bit about. A lot of scams going on in wholesaling, a lot of people not able to close, people are losing money. It's becoming a very big lawsuit. Anyway, it's long story short, we have to be able to, as agents, go in and see who actually owns that property, how long they've lived there, and what's going on with these properties. Well, what we've encouraged people to do, and what we are doing at My Real Source and many of the MLSs is we would like better tax records for Michigan. Do you know Michigan is the 6th worst in the country for tax records? Did you know if you go into California tax records, there are dozens of fields that agents have to fill out when they're closing a sale to keep that record intact and keep it moving forward, so that those required fields actually give us better data. However, in Michigan, a lot of the municipalities here aren't even online. Where in other states, they had to be online several years ago. So it's really hard to get good tax data. And this is one of the things I think Michigan Realtors can help us lobby to get. This is something that we really, really need. So next time you're talking to your friends at Michigan Realtors, this is something that we're asking people to really remind them that we really do need better tax data for our own, to keep us safe, so we know who these sellers actually are. All right, so where do we start with that? So I want to go into the BS&A record, and as a My Real Source way to give back to our members, we know that those records can be around $6.25 a record now. That means every time you click to get that information, first you have to log into BS&A, then you have to wait for that to load, then you have to go to the municipality, you have to wait for that to load, then you have to actually put in the address, wait for that to load, then it says if you really want this information, you're going to pay $6.25. Now what we're doing is we're deep linking that right into the MLS, and if you're a My Real Source member, if you are in Genesee County, if you are in St. Clair County, if you are in Macomb County, if you're looking at any of the 5 gross points, we actually get that bill. So it still costs $6.25, but it actually sends My Real Source that bill instead of you having to drag your credit card out for each property record. So where do we find that? Well, it kind of looks like, and I apologize, Brian, our chief technical officer, he tried to put the government pillar on the button. I think it looks a little more like a trash can now than a government pillar. But long story short, you're going to click on that trash can looking icon, and that will take you into the BS&A record. That BS&A record will open up the property record. So who is actually the seller? It's going to open up things like many of them have the unpaid utilities, because as you know, water stays with the property and that water bill's got to be paid. Just had one the other day that was over $1,000 delinquent. So you've got to know that, especially if you're doing their net out. We want to include all of that there so that there's no surprises. But this is where you can also find things like, have the taxes been paid? But the reason I want to start here is you see how much information this is giving us? It's 3 bedrooms. It's 1 full bath, 1 half bath, what the lot size is, what the square footage is. Does it have a basement? Does it have a garage? What size is the garage? Our frontage is 60, our lot size is 60 by 120. So all of this is right here. I can see that the garage area is 399 square feet. I can see if the basement's finished. All of that is included right here for me to see. I can see that the exterior is brick, a lot of that detail. And why do I want that detail? Because remember, I'm going to try to find those like comps with that information. All right. So the first thing I do is I go up here and I hit print. I save this as a PDF because I want to make one really impressive CMA, but I have information from all these different sources that I want to bring into it. So that's the first thing. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to simply print this as a PDF, and I'm going to save this and pull this into my CMA. The other thing is, let's say my good friend Mary Rose, she is taking a listing up in Road City. She lists them all over. Every time I turn around, she's got a new listing. So she's now going to list this property, but it's almost 3 hours away. Well, for her to drive all the way up there, take a picture of the listing, come back, do all of her CMA, and now drive 3 hours, she's not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense, right? So all she's going to do is right here, this is a public records photo. Now, I am not saying by any means that you should steal this photo and use it in the MLS, because Taylor has a great copyright class and she will tell you 100 reasons that that is not acceptable. I'm also not going to mark it with this photo. But I do want to have a really pretty cover for my CMA that I'm going to show the seller. I did my due diligence. I know what your house looks like. I found out all of the detail, and I even went to the tax records. So I do want to actually have this photo on my cover. Again, I am not marketing this anywhere. I am not stealing this for my MLS photos. That would not be right. But if I do want to have a front cover that I'm going to show that seller that I did find their exact house, I didn't do the CMA on a house 2 houses down, this is very helpful. Plus, it gives you a Google overhead shot, but I think I don't like that. I'm never going to sit with a seller and say, here's your Google overhead shot. Your home is lovely, right? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So we're going to right click on this, and I'm just going to save this image, because I want to go ahead and I want to pull that into my CMA as well. So I'm just going to go in and save that in my downloads so I can find it for our class. So now I've started gathering the detail, but I like to gather as much detail because sometimes, and this happens more than you think, sometimes you find one record says one thing, the assessor says this, but then you go into Realist, our second place that we're going to start, and it says something different. So what is Realist? Well, BS&A, as I mentioned, is the actual assessor. That's the trusted record that is coming from one trusted source. That's what a judge is going to look at. However, Realist gives you more information because what it's doing is it's combining sources. It's taking some from the assessor, the tax information, and it's taking some from the MLS from previous sales, and it's actually giving you kind of a ballpark look. So I also want to have that in here, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to click on this red button right here. And that's going to take me into the Realist record. So a lot of times when you go into Realist, and of course, you're going to see a lot of the same information, 3 bedrooms, 1 full bath, 1 half bath, and because it's pulling that from the tax records. But a lot of times you will see some additional information, like if it has gone into foreclosure, if it's recently been sold on a quick claim deed, you'll see that here. If it's been refied, that's something that you can see here that you oftentimes don't see in BS&A. Now, why that's important is people are starting to live on their credit cards again, right? They bought houses at the peak. They are now going a little bit into debt because we've seen kind of high inflation. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of a change. And if they purchased and you've seen that they've pulled money out recently, when you're sitting with them about selling their home a year later or 2 years later, you might have to have those tough conversations, right? So I want to know what they did. Did they refi? I want to be able to have that conversation and say, you know, we might be a little bit upside down in this house. So we want to be able to net them out properly and have those conversations ahead of time. The other thing about this, and I've had this happen personally, sometimes you will see, I was trying to see if it's on this record. Sometimes you will see it says tax next to a number, like this one says MLS, but sometimes you will see that the MLS says one thing and the tax record says something a little bit different. So what does that mean? Well, that means that something isn't matching up. And I'll give you a good example that happened to me. The MLS, in the MLS, I could clearly see it's a 2-story house, right? But the tax records only showed 1 story. The assessor record, of course, is the most important thing. This home happened to be in Sterling Heights, only 2 doors down from the house I used as this example, as a matter of fact. And when I got there, pull up, I can clearly see it's a 2-story home. So I had to ask the gentleman, in the English was a little broken, but I said it's 2 stories, and I pointed out that it only said 1 story, and he said that he owned a dormer company previously, and he had put the 2nd story on himself, which was fantastic. But my next question was, and it was beautiful workmanship, did you ever pull a permit? And he said no. So that's where we started our listing conversation. But those are all great questions. When you see things flagged in here, like different square footage, or those are great questions to ask, because usually there's a story behind it, and those are stories that we usually want to know. So I take both of these records. I also print this. There's a little print button right up here. I also print this. I save it on my computer because that's another document that I now want to pull into my CMA. So I've started pulling all my data. But one of the things I like, and I'll kind of give you an example, jump you around a little bit here for just a second. In my CMAs, I like to include all of those outside documents, but I want to have one complete CMA with all of these pieces, right? So I'm going to kind of give you an example. We'll do this kind of backwards here for just a second. I'm going to give you an example of why you want to have all of this in your CMA and what that finished product is going to look like. So here is a CMA on a house that I closed just a couple of months ago. And you can see how here that they had lived in that house for 20 years. So it wasn't even in the MLS. So I had to go into the tax records. It was a very, very old photo. It was actually beautiful in Washington Township. They'd redone everything. It was stunning. But I wanted, one of the pieces that I wanted to have in there was what's going on in the market. So for them, I wanted to show what was going on in their city right at that moment where we were sitting, talking about listing their home. But I also wanted to show what was going on in the county. There have been times in the past few years we've seen, inventory down 70%, and man, what it did to those average sales numbers, right? It went from 300 to almost 400. I mean, almost $100,000 in 1 year. I never thought I would see something like that. So educating them on what's going on in their marketplace right now is going to be really important, because these sellers for so long have heard record prices, record showings, record numbers. In some areas, it's probably still like that, but in some areas, it's definitely not. I swear the other day, I felt like somebody just turned the showing pipe off. There was not a lot of showings coming in, especially this time of year. So I bring in these FAT stats. Fast stats literally are 2 clicks. So I created this whole graph in 2 clicks, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But when I was sitting with them, it was so nice to be able to say, okay, we're only down about 6% in our inventory in Washington Township right now. And what that means is that in May of 2024, there were 66 houses on the market. This year, there's only 62. So we're down by about 4 houses. Let's take a look at our average sales price, though. We're seeing a little bit of a dip in our average sales price. It went from 611 to 542. So where you're hearing record prices, we're seeing a little bit of a shift now. This is a great way to not make you the bad guy, but to show it on paper. I don't know if anybody even remembers Floyd Wickman, but I was a huge Floyd Wickman fan. Took a lot of his courses. He created this thing called Sweat Hogs. It was awesome. I know Mary Rose, my friend, she's a huge Sweat Hogs person too. And it was a great way and one of his famous sayings was, never tell a seller anything. Show them everything on paper. You're not their friend yet. You're there to show them so that they trust you. They're showing you the evidence. And this is a great way to do that. How long they should expect for it to take to close. How long should they expect to be active on the market? So this graph breaks all of that down. It's easy to explain. And by the way, there's the condo metrics right underneath. So if you're listing a condo, same thing. So condos were a little bit different. We were down almost 22% in the condo market. Look at our average sales price though. Even though we're down a lot in our inventory, our sales price still declined by almost 11,000. And so being able to explain that and educate them on why we're giving them this price range or why we're giving them this suggested price, I think that that's very crucial right now. Again, having your CMA with your realist record in it, having your CMA with your BS&A record. This is that one I told you he had a lot of permits, and I wanted to show that the taxes had all been paid. So these are all of those things. As you can see here, there was just a bunch of permits that were pulled. So I went in to each one of those where it says view, and you can see the permit, but it didn't really tell me that they were doing 40 grand worth of hardscape. These were questions that I was able to ask on my appointment by having these things right in my CMA. Some of the other things, and this is one of the brand new things we're going to show you today. When I was going on a listing appointment, it seemed like every single person would ask me right off the top, so you're going to put my house on Zillow? Am I going to be on Realtor.com? How are you going to market my house, right? Every single appointment, they're going to ask you that. So why not have a nice page like this already set up for you? So in your CMA, you're already addressing that objection even before they ask it. So most brokers syndicate to about 400 different real estate sites in this market. And I just kind of grabbed a few of the top highlights here. But what Taylor had the great idea, who saw this page and she said, Colleen, you know, I really like that. We should make that available for everyone, and we should make it customizable so Mary Rose can go in and put in Mary Rose's name and Mary Rose's contact information. Maybe she syndicates through Real Estate One to 500 different sites. So what we did is we found a way to make this customizable so you can change the number, you can put your contact information at the bottom, and we've actually started creating a few different sheets like this. I'm going to show you some of those examples coming up. But this way, you don't even have to think about it. In about 5 seconds, you can have this in your CMA just like you're seeing here, but it will have your information on it. So basically, we're pulling all this data together, but now what's the most important thing? Coming up with that price, right? Coming up with the comps that we're going to want to use. So I've gathered all my text data. I now am going in, I'm gathering my stats data. Let's do that next. We're getting all those outside pieces ready. So I'm going to go up to my resources. By the way, resources is not only where you find all those great education things we just talked about, but this is where you find all your great tools. Taylor and I were really insistent when we started doing these classes. I hated that we had tools in all these different places. We said, don't move the cheese, man. Put the cheese in the same spot. Give us a file cabinet where we can find all of our tools. And so that's what resources is. Not only your education tools that you have available, but this is where you find things like Cloud CMA. And our next one, which is Market Stats, which is where I built those great stats that I just showed you. So we're going to go into social media and lead gen. There's probably some products in here you never even knew existed, by the way. We're going to go into market stats. Now, market stats does a whole bunch of things. You can make these great graphs that you can share onto social media, where it not only gives everybody great information, but it captures the lead and brings it back to you. I know it's very, very cool. You can create these great stories, people can click on them, but it's also capturing their information and sending it back to you, so it becomes a real lead. A lot of cool things you can do with market stats. But where we're going to go today is right up here to the top for those fast stats. Remember, I said I made those great graphs to educate our seller within 2 clicks. So all you do is click on fast stats, the county. So I'm going to say Macomb County. I'm going to use, I think it was Roseville, Mary Rose. Just yesterday, I was on Facebook, saw another brand new listing of hers pop up. And so we're going to say, maybe I want to know what the stats are right now for Roseville for my listing appointment. All I'm going to do is click on the city. That's it. It's really that simple. So let's take a look at those stats. So right now, when she's doing her CMA, she's going to say, well, we're down still about 10% in inventory. And we had 101 homes on the market in December of 2024. Remember, this is always going to be one rolling month behind. And the reason is it has to gather all of that data for that month. So we've got 101 homes versus this year, only 90. That gives us our about 11% decrease. What's going on in our average sales price? Not terrible. We're only down about 3%, right? We're down from 175 to 170. I'm going to print this as a PDF, and I'm going to pull that into my CMA too. So really, really easy. So let me just go over it one more time because we did it kind of fast. You are simply going to go into resources. Start again, just so you can see exactly how to get there. You're going to go into resources here in Paragon. Going to go right into market stats. Bunch of things you can do. We'll actually show this in a lot of the other classes, but today we're going to stick with fast stats. Click on the city, or I'm sorry, the county, and then the city. So let's do Macomb Township this time. Simply going to click on that PDF. And I can see, hey, we've got a different story. This is why it's so important right now. Now we have an inventory surplus of 14%. So, but what is that doing to our average sales price? Still not the same story we've been seeing all along, right? Our average sales price has declined from 500,000 to 471. So certainly that's something that we want to start educating our sellers on, especially in this market. So I'm pulling all the data together. Now I know how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. Now I can start building my comparables. So where are we going to do that? Of course, in the MLS itself. So let me go there. So when you go into the MLS, now I want to do a full-on search. I want to find the homes that are going to be just like this one. And what I mean is I'm never going to compare a 5,000 square foot brick colonial to a 700 square foot ranch, right? So I want to do apples to apples. So the idea is I want to be able to pull all the data from my tax information to now find those comparables and make sure that those numbers are right. And I'm happy to say that you now can see 97% of the state of Michigan in Paragon. And what that means is for so long, we could only see in our little area, right? And thanks to data sharing, we now can see all of those comps, except for our MLS. And I think there's 3 missing MLSs up north that we're still trying to work through. Our MLS, you don't have to be a realtor. And with our data sharing agreements, it says that you're going to share with other realtors. So there's that code of ethics in case people don't behave well, things like that. But now I want to take all that information and I want to find those comps. So obviously I'm going to search for the type of property that we're listing. If we're listing vacant land, we're going to search vacant land. Today we're going to do a nice, easy single family home, right? So I want to go in and I want to start building my comparables. And if you are brand new to Paragon, remember, if you don't know what goes into a particular field, just simply use that magnifying glass to the right and it will tell you exactly what that field is looking for. So I know this home happens to be a residential. I'm not looking for leases. I always hate when I get all the way to the next step and I'm like, geez, Colleen, you left in all the leases. So I just want to show what's for sale. Now, of course, your closed are the most important numbers. That's the number that we need to know. What did they close at? How long did it take? Were there concessions? That's the most important part, right? And that's what we're basing that number on. But my good friend Floyd Wickman said, Colleen, if you're going to waste a seller's time and sit there, you better also know that they know what's active in their subdivision, they know what's pending in their subdivision, and you better know it too, right? So now we're going to include those active listings and those pending listings. So we're not deriving our number from those, but we want to show that we did our homework and we know that there's a really high price comp that hasn't sold in your neighborhood, and probably the price has something to do with that because they're going to ask you. So I want to have that right here. The other thing is I absolutely hate these stupid MLS calendars. I'll be totally honest with you, to have to click and then click 6 months back and then click on it. That's ridiculous. So just go over here to where it says date range. In this market, of course, we're just going to go back about 6 months in this particular subdivision. Now, keep in mind, I'm giving you the run of the mill. I am very aware that if you're out in a rural area or if you're doing waterfront, sometimes you gotta expand these parameters. I'm giving you some pretty basic stuff here, but I live out in Richmond, and there are some blocks where there's only 3 houses for a 4 mile square block. Right? So that changes things. Sometimes we've got to open these up, but I'm going to show you some secrets and tips to that too. All right. So we've got our active pending closed. We know that this is a 1-story home, so a brick ranch. So I really want to try to find other brick ranches if possible. And in this neighborhood, absolutely we'll be able to do that. I know it's 3 bedrooms because we got that from the taxes. I know that it is a 1.5 bath. By the way, a lot of people don't know. Did you know that there is a field that calls for full baths and halves? So if you want to be even more specific, you absolutely can do that. So I'm going to do 1 to 2 baths here, though. I also want to say that yes, it does have a basement. And yes, it does have a garage. You could even specify the size of the garage. But what about the square footage? This always comes up. So what happens if where does an appraiser draw the line on square footage? And I know you're probably thinking, well, what if it's a cash sale? Well, you still got to know what it's going to appraise for, right? You still have to know if you take an offer, let's say you get an offer of this. You're going to need to know, is it going to appraise for that, especially if it's not cash? Is it going to appraise here or somewhere else? Because if the offer is at 200,000 and it's going to appraise at 150, where's that 50,000 coming from, right? We need to know what it's going to appraise at. So a lot of people say, well, maybe I'll get cash. Yeah, well, maybe you won't. So, all right, so I'm putting in my garage, I'm putting in my basement, but what about that square footage? Well, every appraiser I've ever talked to, and I think I've asked probably close to 19 or 20 of them now, they all use the 20% square footage rule. And what that means is this home we saw in the tax records was 1361 for the square footage. So we're going to find 20% of that number, which I think works up to 272. And we're going to add the 272 to the 1361. It comes out about 1550 in my head. That's going to be our top limit. Then I'm going to take that 272 off of that 1361. And that's going to come to, I'm just going to use a nice round one. I think it comes to 1095. We're going to use 1100. All right. So now we have our 20% square footage range, and that's what an appraiser is going to do. A lot of things changing with appraisals right now. I just took an appraisal class a couple of months back with my good friend Lori Jagloy, and it's amazing how appraisals are changing right and left, and people are getting confused because for years it's always been this and now it's this. So we want to make sure that we're going to fall in that 20% square footage range. All right, so now we've got all of our basics in for this property. Of course, you'd want to include things like school district. That's going to be important. You're never going to compare a new construction to a 1930s style home, right? I mean, that's probably not going to work. Those numbers are never going to make sense. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to, and again, you could make this really super detailed, but I would put in things like school district. I would put in things like year built. But you're probably thinking, well, lady with the fuzzy hair, you got 4,706 comps. Well, you're right. We'd be doing our CMA for several years, which we don't want to do. But we haven't put in the most important thing, right? Which is location, location, location. So But I don't want to just put in the city and have to go through a bunch of comps. I want to actually hone in and find comps within a mile of the subject property, because that's what an appraiser is going to do. So how do we do that? And how do we make it easy? The answer is go right to your map. You're going to see this search by map right here. We're going to jump into our map. Now, by the way, when your map opens, people get confused because they see that big red X and they're like, what's going on? Big red X is just showing where your office location is. That's where your map generally opens to. By the way, if you hate that like I do, you can go into preferences, and if you work around your house or you work in a different location, you can change that in your preferences. You're not stuck with it. But here's the easiest way to find 1 mile around your subject property. I like to go right up to this tab, and there's a little trick to it because it uses Google Maps. So if you put in too much information, you're going to have problems. If you put in not enough information, you're going to have problems. Matter of fact, the other day I did it in a class. I forgot to put the city in, and I ended up in Oklahoma. And so you don't want to do that. So let me show you the little trick. The trick is you want to add the route street name, like the route street number and the route street name. So this happens to be 41539 Wessel. It happens to be Wessel Drive. Leave off the drives, the ways, the courts, the avenues. If you put too much information in, it's not going to find it. So what I want to do is the route street address, comma, the city. Because remember, this is a nationwide program. You do not want to see all the comps in Oklahoma. So I'm going to put in my route address, my comma, and the city, and I'm going to hit this little magnifying glass. You have to do this part in 2 steps. People call me all the time. They go, Colleen, it didn't work. I watched your class. It's not working. You got to do it in 2 steps. Turn off my little heater here before I explode. Okay, so we now have our subject property, which is right here. The next thing we want to do, I'm going to zoom out a little. You can see I'm already getting some comparables that are floating in here. If you see these little clustered numbers, it just means the flags are really close to each other. If you zoom in on them, it'll break them apart. But sometimes when you're looking at a high level, you know how a flag gets behind a flag and you can't get to it? I hate that. So they just kind of cluster them. So if you're seeing them in that little cluster, you can always just click on that number and it will actually show you that right over here. So you can kind of flip through those. It's a little bit easier. All right, so the next piece, so I found my subject property. I'm getting those comparables coming in, but I want to stay within 1 mile because that's what an appraiser is going to do. So the last piece is just simply go up to this search radius, type in search radius, right? And now I've created my circle. But let me give you a couple real life. That would be great if it always worked that way, right? But sometimes you do that, you don't get one stinking comp and you're like, geez, and you don't want to put in, you could do 1 mile 0.25, which would give you 1.25 miles. You could do 1.5 miles, but sometimes you start doing that. Now you get way too many comps. What if I told you there's a simple way to just open it up a little bit more if you need to? So let's pretend for just a moment that we didn't get any comps and we're like, you know, okay, I need 3 to 5 comps is really what we're looking for. Now I'm aware sometimes you just don't get that many, but really that's what we're shooting for. So if I didn't pull in any comps right here, there's a little quick tip by just going to edit and clicking on your shape. You see how that just opened up our shape? So if I want to grab this and maybe open it just 1 more street to see if there's another comp, and look right there, we picked up another comp and another comp right here that we might not have gotten. So if you didn't get a comp, don't be afraid to hit that edit and just expand it a little bit more. So let me show that to you 1 more time, how we got there. So, because I know we're covering a lot. I've got my radius. I went up here, I did my search radius. I put in a 1 or 1.25 or whatever you put in. But now I'm going to hit edit. Let's click on that. Let's open it up just a little bit more. And now I can see it brought in 2 additional comps that I wouldn't have gotten before. So don't be afraid to, by the way, once you do that, to open it and close it, it's the same. You just click on the shape. But let's use my good friend Mary Rose. She always gets those fancy listings. I see her, beautiful waterfront listings as I'm driving down Jefferson. And I'm thinking, well, I'm really excited. And we're going to pretend that these 4 listings are Mary Rose's listings. And as I'm super excited for her, but I'm just listing this little brick ranch. Usually I'm getting the fixer upper, if you know what I mean. And I don't want to pull in all those fancy waterfront listings she's got, because that's going to really screw up my CMA number. So how do I exclude that waterfront area? So if you've got a little brick ranch 15 streets off of the water, I don't want to include these $1 million waterfronts and have to go deselect them all. That's kind of a pain. So let's pretend this is beautiful Lake St. Clair. This is Mary Rose's we're going to say that they're $1 million listings. How do we remove that? By the way, you could do this if you were setting up a new buyer in the awesome new Collab Center. You could exclude, let's say they wanted this beautiful Rochester area, but they didn't like this one little area over by the train tracks. Or maybe their mother-in-law lived there and they don't want to be that close. So you can actually exclude areas this same way. So let's look at that. So we're going to go up to our drawing tool here. I'm going to click on Polygon. And I'm going to say, even though I'm so excited to see Mary Rose's beautiful $1 million waterfront, I do not want to pull anything from this particular area into my CMA. Now you're probably thinking, okay, lady with the fuzzy hair, that doesn't make sense because they're still there. One more step. You're simply going to click on include and change that to exclude. Now anything that falls in there, you're not going to have to go back and manually deselect those numbers and do a lot of work. It's just going to remove any waterfront from coming into your CMA. Where this is also very handy, I was thinking of Rivergate the other day. Sometimes there's, and I had a sub like this in Milford, there is you've got your beautiful subdivision and half of that subdivision is all new construction. The other half is those 1930 style brick homes, right? So if you want to remove that without having to do a lot of work, you could put in your built too. That would be an easier way. But if you also just wanted to separate that new construction, you could do that as well. All right, so we've got our area selected. We now want to take a look at those comps. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run my search right over here. By the way, it seems like a lot of times when I do this, I get very frustrated with myself because this is where I realize, oh, Colleen, you didn't take out the leases. And today I remembered, but sometimes I forget. Remember, you can always bounce back and forth. So now in my real life CMA, again, I'm shooting for 3 to 5 closed comps. And I would have put in even more information, but for the sake of time in this class, I would have put in things like, again, the school district's very important, that construction year. I can see that I've got a lot of range in my construction year. But really, I want to know how many properties do I have that are closed? Because that's what we're driving the number from. But if you're like me, I have a little OCD. So the way this is on here makes me crazy. So I like to sort them by status. Did you know if you go to the top of the column, you can simply click on it and it will put closed with closed, active with active, coming soon with coming soon, pending with pending. Do you see how nice that is? Now I know how many closed records I have. Up here, I've got my little mini CMA, so I can kind of see some number breakdowns. But I can see that there is a coming soon because I want to let the homeowner know about that, right? It's going to be competition. I want to also grab those pendings to show that I'm watching those. Now, for the sake of our example today, because I didn't want to take too much time, fill up too much, I'm just going to grab, we'll do 6 random closed comps. Now, if you're like me, and again, I mentioned I have a little OCD, which is probably why this construction mess at my house is making me crazy, but I like to see everything that I'm working with. So I don't like all the extra stuff on my screen. If you're like that, you can go right to checked. Now you're just seeing those 9 properties that we selected. I don't have to see all those garbage ones that I don't want, right? Couple other things, you can customize what fields are here. I have been so blessed. Matter of fact, I'm looking at some great names right here. I've been so blessed. Most every deal I've done, I'd say 98%, I got to work with really great agents. I got to work with Ed Martin. I've got to work with Dominic Torres. I've gotten to work with, Dawn Waldrop and Lisa Harris and so many great agents. But I like to see the agent who has the listing right in my search results because Not that I wouldn't ever, show a property that was listed by somebody, but we all have those certain deals where you feel like you did both sides of the transaction, right? Their clients were calling you, they never answered the phone, they didn't even show up for closing. You know who I'm talking about, those 2% of the world. Not that I wouldn't ever show their listings, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to show somebody like Mary Rose's listing way before I'm going to show that person. So in my list of 10, they're going at the bottom. So I like to see that right in my search result. So these are things you can customize. There's a little customize key right here, and you can actually set this up so it works better for you. So again, you can customize and add particular fields if there's a field that you want to show up in your search results. Or here's another thing. If you're like me, I hate having to scroll over here every time I want to see things like the subdivision it's in, or if that's you, did you know you can literally grab these and drag them where you want? So if you don't want to scroll all the way over every time, you can literally grab them and drag them in the order you want them to be in. So not only can you customize them by clicking on that customize field, this is another quick tip, you can also drag and drop them where you want them to go. So maybe you want ranch, our ranch style, structure style to be closer so you don't have to scroll over every time. And then all you have to do is hit save. And it's going to save that in your preferences so it's stored there for the future. All right, so now I've got my comparables. I want to bring those into my CMA. And as I mentioned, we want the easy button to do that. I'm all about easy buttons, make it simple. So where we start that process is going to be right up here under actions. Actions is simply set up so you can take properties right from the MLS and throw them into showing time, maybe to schedule your showing appointments. In this case, you can even make great buyer tours, but in this case, we want to plop these right into our CMA. So we're going to hit Cloud CMA. All we have to do is now fill out. So I'm going to put in what the title of my report is going to be. I usually like to put the client's names in this, so we'll call this Mary Rose's Happy Seller. Okay, and then over here, we're going to start filling in our address. Now this is going to quick fill. So as soon as they start filling in the address, it's going to grab that tax record. That's going to throw in the bathrooms, bedrooms. But remember how I said having that cover photo that you can use on your CMA? Watch how nice. I'm going to click on this add photo. And remember that photo that we did? I'm going to pull that in, but I don't like that ugly date on there. So I'm just going to crop that out. All right, now we've got a photo. It's brought in all of our MLS numbers. And I will tell you, I've used 7 different CMA programs over the years. I've used everything from Toolkit to RPR. This by far is, I think, the best CMA program. And I'll tell you why. I like RPR very much. It does a lot for you, but I can't be as specific as I can in here, meaning I can't say, I want it to be a brick ranch. I can say ranch and that will work. But you know what? Sometimes in some neighborhoods, brick ranches are worth more than the sided ranches. And there's a difference in price. And I want to be able to see that. And so this lets me drill down to every single field into the MLS. So if there's something unique about that house, I can showcase it here. I can't do that in others. So I really, really like that. All right, Cloud CMA is so simple. It is literally 4 tabs along the top. And really it's 3 because publish means save. And that's how you save it and get it ready to go. So let me show you. Once we've added in our subject property information, we're going to go in and we're just going to hit fetch those listings. Now it's pulling it in, so you get to look at it one more time and make sure all of the comps that you selected were what you wanted. Now I also like this, that you can put in a selected price range. So maybe you haven't gone inside this particular home, maybe you're one-stepping your listing appointment and you want to give yourself a little bit of a wiggle room. Maybe I want to make my range, you can see our average is 301. So maybe I want to make it 290 to 305, so I have a little wiggle room once I get inside. It's kind of a funny story. And I've shared this before in this class, but, I one-stepped this adorable little brick ranch in Sterling Heights. And from the outside, every tulip was planted in a perfect row. The shutters were perfect. It was absolutely immaculate from the outside. And so back in the day, I hate to date myself, and this company isn't even in existence anymore, so I guess I can use this one. Back in the day, we did the fancy bind. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Mary Rose, you probably remember that with me. But we would use these little binder machines, and we'd put our CMAs together all. But the problem was when I went into this house, I stepped in on, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating, 4-inch shag Grover blue, if you know what Grover looks like, that Grover blue carpeting. Walked in, every wall had those stick-on wallflowers, you know, from the Brady Bunch, those big stick-on wallflowers. And I was thinking, I know they say the 70s is coming back, but it ain't ever coming this far back. So now I'm in the bathroom with my little book that I had printed out back in the day, and I'm literally ripping the suggested list price out, which of course with these, the little things were all, it was a mess. So don't do that. Now there's one button, you can override your price way easier. And I'll show you that here as well. But this is where we put in our suggested price range. Now, there's also a net sheet here. And I'm going to be honest, I don't like this part. I like to use the net sheet from either ZipForm or from Transaction Desk. It looks way nicer. It's way easier. This one, you have to go in and do all the math. You know, I was not a fan of that. You can save the items, but I don't want to go in every time and pick and choose and then try to recalculate. In ZipForm and Transaction Desk, it does all that for you. So I just pulled that one to be part of my CMA. Way easier. By the way, you can drag and drop these. So if you want to put them in a different order, you can. If you got all the way here and you're like, oh my gosh, I left that one for $350 and that was new construction, I didn't mean to do that, you could just deselect that one. Maybe you want to go in and kind of review it a little bit. Maybe you're looking at, you want to know, why did this one close for so much more than the others? You can click this notes and adjustment. And this feature is relatively new, by the way. Right here where it says add note, you can actually go in and maybe this home, as you can see, was completely updated top to bottom, and you want to put that in here. Maybe you want, I used to use those back when we had these CMAs, I used to put Post-it notes on, like, this one didn't have central air, or this one had no garage, and all the others. So we would know just by looking at it when you're talking to them why that property closed for more or less. So you can now do that right in this notes section. So again, you can kind of rearrange it, but this is basically your look, the agent's last look before it comes up with this report, right? So just making sure all these comps look just like you want them to. So last, and you can see we've done step 1 and 2. There's one last step, and that's just customizing your report. How do you want it to look? What do you want to include? I have some friends who have hooked this in. You can actually have your testimonials and your ratings from places like Zillow, from Rate Your Agent. There, you can actually have them tied in. So when people put their testimonials in, it sends you an approval and it floats right into your CMA. So there's a lot of extras. This is more a cloud CMA kind of class, but the idea is, now I want to prepare, how do I want my report to look? Some people want, I call it their 30 pages of greatness. If that's you, that's wonderful. You can have your 30 pages of greatness that will have everything from who you are in the industry to how long you've been doing it to what people say about you. That's wonderful. Some people like me, I'm just a little more meat and potatoes. Let me show you how I'm going to market your house. Let me show you what the numbers are going to be, how long it's going to take, who my company is, and let's get your house listed. You could do that too. So you get to choose. Everything that shows up here in my CMA report, this is everything that's going to be in your report now. If you want to add custom pages, again, we can do that. If you want to add more information about your listings, maybe you want to have all 99 photos in there. By the way, if you're going to print it, you probably don't want to do that, but I like to show it on my laptop and email them a copy generally. But there are all these different sections that you can add. I don't like the seller's not cheat, so I don't choose that one, but I do like mine. So I pulled that one in from ZipForm or Transaction Desk. So now if you want to see what a particular page says, you can simply click on it. This is one that I showed you earlier that you're going to be able to customize now. If you don't like a particular page, you can literally hit the minus button and it's going to pull it out of your report. So you don't have to use any marketing page that maybe you don't want to. Think this is, oh, I like to also include, this happens to be a previous flyer that I did. So I like to, in my CMA, kind of give them an example of the flyer that I'm going to make for their listing. And here's an example of a previous list. This happened to be right around the corner from the house I was listing, so I wanted to have that in there. So these are all things you can just grab from your desktop and include in your CMA to show how you're going to market that home. There are different themes. There is a theme for every company color that I have not seen a company color that is not in there. I like some of the modern themes, but please be aware, if you are with Real Estate One, if you are with Remax, they actually have paid several thousands of dollars to have these great custom pages done. They automatically are there for you to use. So there's different company themes too. So my company didn't have that, so I'm just kind of going with the dark red theme. Again, you can actually drag and drop how you want these to be located. And again, pulling in those custom, pulling in those realist records, BS&A, pulling in all those extra pieces, our market stats. That's how we're creating that really wowing CMA. Last thing I want to do is I want to publish that report. It's published just means save. So any changes that you want in your report, you're simply going to hit that publish button. Takes about 30 seconds to generate your CMA report. And I'm just going to show you that one that we started with here, just saying. So now, after about 30 seconds, here is your finished product. Now they do have an interactive one, which I love. There's some great new features in here. We show that in the Cloud CMA class, but for the sake of time, do you see how wowing this presentation is? It tells all about my company. This took me 7 minutes to make, by the way. Tells everything from are their taxes paid to how we're going to market their home. But let's take a look at those comps. All right, so we've got our comps here. When they ask Mary Rose, well, I know that you're saying my house is worth this, Mary Rose, but what about Joe Schmagegi on the corner? Did he have a finished basement? Well, Mary Rose wants to be able to see those interior photos so she can have those conversations too. And so we can say, actually, he did have a finished basement. Here's what it looked like. Or no, he didn't have any updates and your home is much nicer. Then, of course, at the end, we've got our comparables, our breakdowns of our solds, our pendings, and our actives. And they even have great pre-written marketing pages. So like this one says that right now properties were selling for 101% of their list price, and on average it was 8 days on the market. And it does these really nice breakdowns, price per square feet. But if you decide you didn't want to use that particular page, you can always remove it too. You're not locked in. All right, so lastly, so now we have got our wowing CMA. We now need them to sign the paperwork, right? So that's the next important piece. And that, of course, some people are using ZipForm to do. I am a huge fan of Transaction Desk. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. ZipForm is going away and Transaction Desk is going away. There is a new product that will be replacing it. Don't worry, it's not tomorrow. I'm not even sure if it's gonna be, this year, but there is a new product that has come out called Transact. And really the goal of this was to have one product, because ZipForm used to be owned by one company, REFormsNet, and then Transaction Desk owned, Lone Wolf owned Transaction Desk, and basically Lone Wolf purchased ZipForm. Now they're under one umbrella, and so they're merging the best of both of those products together in this new product that I've been beta testing. I'm very, very happy. I think you're really going to like it. It has nailed a lot of the pain points. And I think you're going to see that it's very, very simple to use. It's very intuitive. So that's coming. So right now, I'm going to kind of just give you a real quick look at Transaction Desk, because again, that's going to be changing. But right now I want to go in and I want to create easily in about 7 to 8 minutes, all of the listing paperwork that I need to take this new listing. So I'm going to go into resources, and under online forms, I'm going to select Transaction Desk. I'm not going to go too far into this today because, again, this is going to be changing. You'll be seeing the new Transact classes coming here soon. I know it seems like just when we nail down technology, it changes again, right? But when we want to create a listing, there's a couple cool things you can do that most people don't know are in here. So I want to show you. The first thing I want to do is I want to not have to fill a lot of information out for my listing. I just want it to fill out from the tax records. Isn't that why we have them? We want to pull as much data in as possible. So I'm going to go into Transaction Desk. Again, you'll find this under your resources. And I'm going to add a new transaction. Now, this is also where you can start beta testing Transact 2. For this example, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to confuse everybody today. So I'm just going to do this in the old or classic version of Transact, or a Transaction Desk, sorry. I have to keep saying that. The first thing I want to do is obviously type in the property address that we're listing. And I know some people like to use the person's name. The only problem with that is if you do that, and Bob Smith buys, like Mary Rose, she's got people who've used her for 5 or 6 transactions. Well, now she's got to open up 5 or 6 Bob Smiths. That's a little tricky. So I'd rather just have the address and then the client name. The next time saver is have your listing package all set up. I don't want to have to go hunt for listing forms. I just want all, seems like 72,000 that my company requires. I just want them to drop into the transaction, right? The next thing is, I don't want to fill anything out. I should just have to fill out the minimum. I don't even want to fill out the seller's names. I want it to know that for me. That's intuitive, right? So I want to go right to Realist, the tax records. But there's a secret. I also don't want to go look a bunch of stuff up. So I want to hit this little magnifying glass. And I want to put in only 3 pieces. This is just like Google Maps. Put too much, not going to get anything back. I want to put in the county. So squinting, there we go. I also want to put in that street number and the route street name. That's it. Leave off the ways, the drives, the places. Search tax data. Immediately you see it found the tax record. And I'm going to pull that in. And it's going to start this whole transaction wizard now for me. It's going to know who the sellers of record are, or at least who they should be. You never know these days. And it's going to start that whole wizard for me. So if you're familiar with the wizard, you see how much auto population is already starting to take place. The legal description, the subdivision, the tax information, the tax ID, the school district, all that's starting to flow. But here's where it gets good. If I jump through the wizard, it even brought in the sellers of record. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, I could have filled that out. And you're right, you could have. But the benefit here is it knows it's the seller. So when you go into the signing process in Authentisign, which is staying the same, by the way, the signing process will tag every place your seller is supposed to sign. So you don't have to move all those stupid little tags on every time. It'll say, oh, this is the seller form, seller signs here, and here's the seller's name. So it will actually save you about 10 minutes of tagging forms by doing this. The other thing is that's going to bring me right into my forms, as you can see. And if I just do a quick preview, there's a whole Transaction Desk class, by the way. But there's 2 quick things I do want to show you here. If I go to, let's say, my listing agreement, you can see that that auto population is already starting to take place. And obviously, if you put in things like right in the wizard that I'm asking for the washer and the dryer, all of that will carry over to every single form. But I do want to show you 2 really quick and easy things that by doing Transaction Desk, you can save a tremendous amount of time. So let me show you first. And that happens to be the data sheet. So let me find this quickly. Did you know that there is a sheet in here that will actually push all the information from your listing paperwork into a listing for you in the MLS? Most people don't know that. So let me explain how this works. So there's a listing data form, and a lot of people say, well, Colleen, I'm not filling that out yet because I haven't even got the listing yet. Well, that's okay. You can still create all of your listing paperwork in here. So what I do is I go in and I fill as much information into my listing data sheet as I can. I usually then print this and I take it with me to the listing. And as I'm walking through, I also use this for my measurements. This is usually where I'm writing all that stuff down. But instead of doing all this hard work and filling this form out and turning it in, did you know that there is a button right up here that says upload listing? That you will take all the required data fields from this form and it will load it into the MLS for you. So I tell people, fill out as much of this form as you can, but there's some things Mary Rose doesn't know yet. She does not know the final listing price generally. She does not know the room measurements. She hasn't used her cool Kubacasa app to get that yet. Once you've got that, simply come back to the form and fill this in. hit this upload listing button. Now, here's the cool thing. If your admin, by the way, is in charge of putting your listings in, there are some companies I'm aware that agents aren't even allowed to put their own listings in. If your admin puts your listings in, it's okay. They will see this too. When I click that button, basically what it's just done is it's created a partial listing in the system. So now if my admins have to go check things, I'll just use my office here. If my admin has to go in and check a listing before it goes live, they can literally go in, they could add photos, they could check the remarks, make sure there's nothing they're going to get fined for, whatever it happens to be. And then all they have to do is hit save, and this listing is now going to be live in the MLS. Maybe they're just going to review it for you. They could even save it again as a partial after they've updated it. You as an agent, if you put in your own listings, I can see all of mine here as well. And I can go ahead, and then when I'm ready to make that listing live, I'm just going to go right here. I'm going to save it, and that listing is live now in the MLS. All right, so last thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Taylor. This is also a great way, once you've pushed all your data over from the data sheet, you can also go in and easily add your seller's disclosure documents. So I want to remember you only have 48 hours to get those uploaded. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add data or add document. I'm going to simply click add new document. Browse my computer where that document is. So I'm just going to find, we're going to pretend this is my seller's disclosure right here. I'm going to give it a description, and I'm going to make this a public document so that everyone can see it. By the way, now you can actually, if you take the Collab Center class, I'm going to show you how for the first time we can give pieces of information to our buyers out there using these documents that they cannot get on Zillow, that they can't get on Realtor.com, they can't get anywhere else. So not only does it allow, the Collab Center allows you to give homes faster to your buyers, they're going to see them. They're going to be more updated and more accurate because they're not done in a feed. It's the live MLS database. They can also see things like rules and regs for your condos. They can also see things like surveys and other things under associated docs. So very helpful. We can finally give more information to our clients faster than they can find on these other sites. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taylor. She's going to take you on a whole tour, everything from photos, which she teaches an awesome photo class, to promoting the listing. And so I am going to bump it over to her. Let me find you in my big long list.
All right, good job. Thank you.
I know we covered a lot. We covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
All right, you should have that pop up.
Yep, let me just open up, show my screen. You guys should be seeing Paragon. Nope, you're seeing my desktop. All right, are you seeing Paragon now?
We are.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, well, great job. I just want to pick up from where Colleen left off with the partial listing. She was, she led up from probably A to P at this point, right? So she got all the listing data, most of it from the data sheet, tax records, all of that. And then now it's hanging out in Paragon as a draft. And this is where I'm going to take off. So you have your partial listing here in Paragon for you to finalize, get it ready to go, how that all is going to work, and then marketing it and promoting it after the listing is live. So one thing that I want to kind of piggyback off of with the partial listing, she mentioned the admin feature, is we have something called Assume Identity. And Assume Identity allows me to actually go in as Colleen now. So let's say that I'm Colleen's assistant or the office admin, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to finalize some of her partial listing. I can go in and I can do that now, and I'm Taylor acting on behalf or assumed for Colleen. And that's all being tracked behind the scenes. So if I were to do anything to the photos, if I were to change the price, if I were to update any information, it's going to do a timestamp, and it's going to let me know, let Colleen know that the admin Taylor at her office that made these changes or helped maintain this listing for her. So now I can go in and I can retrieve that partial that she started under listings and then hit partials, and it'll be there for me to help her if I was her admin or her assistant. Okay, so there's a lot of features within the listing maintenance part that I'm going to be showing you guys in a second. But one thing that I want to explain about the partial feature is how the listing data really works, because when the listing goes into Paragon and it's a draft, obviously it's just a draft. Nobody can see that except for you and your firm. But once you make that listing live, it's seen as a new listing one time in the system. And that matters because of how you put it out into the world. So if you are going to make it live, it is that data feed is pulled, and there's an indicator in the feed that lets us know that it is a new listing alert. And the way that works is it kind of has priority over how fast it gets out, but also notifications get sent out to people where this criteria matches. So there's all these places that this now live listing will go. That's obviously going to be in my real source, our version of Paragon, instantly live. It's instantly live to all the ones that we vendor as well. So that's going to be in the system for agents to search, but also it's going to go to the collaboration center and auto emails where they get that notification that this home that you just turned live is available, and they get that push notification sent. Now, any of our data shares, it's going to be there within about 15 minutes to a half an hour. So all of their MLS systems, it'll be live there. And then anybody who has set up as a search for in their system is going to get that push notification within about 15 minutes to a half an hour. And then anything from like an IDX feed or a syndication site, such as like a Zillow, a broker's website, a realtor.com, all of those can be anywhere from about a half an hour up to 24 hours if it is not a new listing alert. New listings, like I said, have priority. So I'm trying to kind of make the point here that you want your listing to be ready to go. You want all your photos, all your captions, all your descriptions, all your marketing, and everything perfect before you make it live, because once it's live, that priority is no longer there. Also, the listing alert, new listing alert, does not get notified. And with that priority, it can take anywhere from an hour to 24 hours to be updated as like a media file update. So depending on what you're changing on the listing, that feed has some sort of triggers. This is out of my area of expertise, but what it does is it recognizes like, okay, well, if it's a price change, then that's going to be kind of in the ranks, versus now I'm going in and I'm going to add some media links. I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some photos because I didn't do it 2 days ago. Well, the problem with that is you lost your opportunity for a first impression with all of those push notifications on all of these data shares that you're seeing here, which is 97% of the state, as well as all of the syndication and broker IDX sites. And now it can be up to 24 hours before that's all updated, because that feed is seen as a media file update. So moral of all of this with the partial function that Colleen just showed you guys, have that listing prepared well before it needs to go live so that you can perfect it. You can have it hanging out as the draft in there, go in, make sure everything is ready to go and perfect before you push it live, because that's that first impression that you have, okay? So just kind of something to keep in mind. These are all of our data shares. Like I said, we have 97% of the state. with our data shares for our members. So you are seeing a lot of people, a lot of agents all across the state are seeing your listing in the MLS. They're able to pull that information seamlessly right into their version of whether it's Paragon or their version of whatever MLS system that they use. And we actually have the most data in the state of Michigan in the MLS system. So between all of our data shares, all of our exclusive data shares, all of our regional data shares that we vendor with, all of that is going to give you exposure. So you have so many eyeballs on your listing that you want to have beautiful photos, great marketing, take your time to do your captions and descriptions, but even more, you want to make sure that when you push that listing live, you have it all ready to go before it's published. All right, so let's go into a partial listing here and go through all the features within maintaining and perfecting your listing that you can do. So logged in, I'm going to hit the listings button up here, and I'm going to go to partials. Pull up my partials. So now I'm going to open up this listing. And what's nice about the way Paragon's laid out is that it's broken up into containers so that it's not too overwhelming to look at. And it gives you the little R's that let you know. So that data sheet, everything that was populated from tax records or that Colleen would have keyed in on her data sheet that got pushed right over would all be filled in right here. There may be some remaining R's that need to get populated or some extra features and things that she wants to go in and add that maybe are not required. But what's nice is it really kind of breaks it down so that before you move on to the next thing, you can be prepared if you have to look something up or you look through paperwork and you know what container is coming up. And then I also like compared to some systems that I've seen where you have to kind of tab around and you actually have to click with your mouse everywhere. This just tabs through. Tabs through. So each section, go ahead, fill it out, tab through. And then once you've done it, you can minimize it if you would like. So you can see there's all these different areas from the tax, the financial, the rooms, features, remarks. But one area I like to show is the virtual tours and promotional links area. So unique to Paragon is these 4 fields. So you have a lot of opportunities to market your listing. You can do obviously your photos, your floor plans. You can go in and you can actually make your own video tours if you want. You can do a branded version and an unbranded. And then let's say you do hire a third party media creator of some sort to do a 3D tour or to do a promotional video or an aerial video, something like that. You can do something of your own and you can hire somebody else. You don't have to compromise one over the other. So you can do a branded version of your own creation, an unbranded version of your own creation, and then whoever you hire to do any kind of extra promotional video link, they can create a branded and an unbranded version as well. So there's a lot of different types of companies out there, as many of you guys probably know, that do a lot of tours and experiences or promotional videos for listings. We have, I mean, there's just so much has developed over in technology where it can be interactive, interactive floor plans, beautiful, you know, kind of movie creations. We've seen it all. So, but one thing that we like to show is that you're not only limited just to that. You can create your own, and Colleen did a really great job on a little condo that she had where she just made her own promotional video and did a tour, and she did a branded version and an unbranded version. So when I say unbranded, unbranded means it's not going to say your name as the agent, it's not going to plug your brokerage, and it's also going to go in the unbranded, or basically where it doesn't say branded. And how it's going to be distributed is through all the places where you can't really be advertising as an agent. So it's not going to be on like the MLS side of things, on the IDX side of things, but it will be, you can do a branded version, and that can go out on like your single property website, that can go out on syndication sites, so that you do have a version that has your logo and your name and all that being put out there. But Colleen was really creative in how she did a branded and unbranded, because she just did it verbally too. So here's her branded version of her tour she created just on her iPhone. And then she spliced it all up with the free app that comes on an iPhone called Clips. And she can go in and she can just kind of, you know, just change the intro and then save that video, and then she uploaded it to her YouTube channel. So you can see Colleen has her own little YouTube channel. Recommend agents, if they want to do things like this, should have their own YouTube channel so that they can have promotional videos about themselves, but they can also have promotional videos about their properties, content that maybe they want to create and add on there as well. So here's an example. Oh, might want to hear you, Colleen. Hang on.
Tour of a new listing. Hello, everyone. Colleen DeLang with Keller Williams Lakeside. Want to take you on a property tour of a new listing at 50839 Marshall Lane in beautiful downtown New Baltimore. Actually, we're just steps away from beautiful Lake St. Clair as well. So let me take you on a tour. Stepping in.
So you see the little splice where she just did the intro, and then now she's doing the one tour that she did, and she can change the intro for 2 different videos.
Inside here, we have an entrance to the 1.5 car garage. We walk right into the living room. It does have a gas fireplace. And then just off to the left, we have a full first floor bathroom. And then just over here, we have a dining room just off the kitchen.
So Colleen did one seamless video walking through the house, narrating just with her iPhone, changed out the beginning. I'll show you the one where she does an unbranded.
Hello, everyone. Want to take you on a tour of my new listing at 50839 Marshall Lane in beautiful downtown New Baltimore, just steps from Lake St. Clair. Let's go in and take a look. Stepping inside here, we have an entrance.
So the same exact tour. And what this allows her to do is to not spend any extra money to be able to promote her listing. So it was just her time. Colleen, roughly, once you were familiar with how to do this, how long did it take you to do this on your listing, to make the video? She might have stepped away. She has contractors in her house right now, but I'm sure it only took probably a few minutes from what she's told me, besides the tour, going in, changing that, then uploading it into YouTube. So this is kind of an option for you too, and it's nice because you do have the 4 placeholders for these different promotional videos once your listing is finalized and ready to go. Another thing that I like to show, oh, Colleen, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Not really, but it's okay. It's a little, you sound like an alien right now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's go into the photos. And once you've added all your data fields, all your promotional videos, now you can go in and you can add those photos, captions, descriptions, everything that you should be doing to get that listing ready to go. Now, when you upload photos, you can upload 25 or 99 at a time. It'll load them here for you in like just a list. Takes a couple minutes, if that, to load up to like 50 photos at a time. I just did that because I needed to start a new partial for other classes. And we do have high resolution photos. So if you upload high resolution or you upload maybe photos that are a little too high in resolution, it will automatically compress those for you to 3072 to 2300. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow for fast loading, but still sharp, crisp photos, no harsh borders, anything like that. You're going to be able to not see any kind of pixelation. So this is a really good resolution currently for displaying on all of the devices, but also for quick loading when you're scrolling and such. So before, sometimes a lot of sites have got a lot better with this over time with like bandwidth and storage, but sometimes when you would upload a photo that was just way too high resolution, it would just slowly load, if anybody remembers that. So we have ours fixed at this 3000 PPI, but there is still a minimum resolution of 640 by 480. And we have that minimum because obviously we don't want photos to look bad in the MLS. We want to do justice to the industry, to the MLS system, and the, for sellers and buyers and everybody. But anything less than 640 by 480 is often going to be like a scraped thumbnail, which is not allowed. So that's outside of our rules. You should not be scraping photos. You should not be stealing thumbnails or taking pictures of thumbnails. So this allows us to keep the data looking nice, but also make sure that there's no scraping of data with that minimum resolution as well. So once all your photos are loaded, it's going to display and it's going to put it in an order that is based either on the way that you've taken them or how they're numbered or alphabetically. It kind of depends on what you have in your hard drive when you uploaded these photos and how the images are labeled in the file. But that very rarely is going to be the exact order that you're going to want your listing. So when it comes to the order of your photos, what I recommend is kind of thinking about, you want to get to the point, but you also want to give them an experience, right? So you don't want to have too much of the same thing where it's like, all right, let's get on with the show here. You don't want to have rooms that are kind of jumping all around and you can't have that like cohesive experience of where everything is in the house. You want to show the main spaces right off the bat, but you also want to have some creative shots sprinkled into that too. So how should I upload my photos? What order should they be? Well, every listing is going to be different, right? So you may have just a cute little 3-bedroom ranch in a small little neighborhood, not a ton going on. Find a couple creative shots that you can get to the meat and potatoes of the home, show a couple different angles, make sure you have, good lighting, you don't miss anything, and there you go. Now, if you have a home that maybe has some certain features that you want to get their attention right off the bat, great, but you don't want to have too much of that up front. So what I mean by that is maybe they are on a lake, or they're on a lot of property, or they have this really show-stopping, pool and garden and all this stuff. So you don't want to save that maybe for the end. You want to get that attention right off the bat. You can actually do both. Have a little teaser at the beginning and then save the rest of it for the end, so that they kind of get their attention at the beginning of something about this property, but then really get into the house, the main spaces, a couple different angles, some close-up shots, and then conclude with some nice selling features of the property, like that lakefront, like that extra land, like the pool, stuff like that you kind of teased at the beginning. Now, the standard rule of thumb that I recommend from just an experience as somebody who's been a buyer and creating that, no missing gaps of information, is you want to have the primary photo. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you You don't need a ton of primary photo shots. I've seen where people have multiple different angles of the outside photo, outside home, or just like a really tight cropped photo. You don't want to do that. You need to have the full house as part of the primary specs. You need to have some sky and you need to have some grass. So you need to be far enough back where you're able to get the whole house, but don't make it so heavy on the house. Have a little balance of sky to grass as well. And then if there is something, let's say this house was on a lake, and I don't want to save that for the end. I'm going to give one little photo following this to let you know that this house is on a lake. So you're planting that seed. Following that, then you're going to do the floor plan. So My Real Source offers a free floor plan app that you can download called Cubicasa. And it allows you to create a floor plan on every single one of your listings up to 5,000 square feet. So you can do even the porches and second dwellings with that. And then you get an image that you can upload. That should follow the beginning or primary photo. Then you're going to want to get into some sort of an entrance space. So whether that's a mudroom or that's a foyer, or if it doesn't have either, then the front door, show different perspectives coming from the front door and angled at the front door, maybe where the living room, where you walk right into the living room. And then you're going to cover that whole main floor. So get to the main parts of the home, the kitchen, the living room, couple different angles, a couple close-up shots of something couple close-up creative shots of something that is in that living room or that kitchen. And then show you kind of exactly what I mean. I came in through the mudroom instead of the foyer because I felt like the mudroom was just such a nice selling feature. I did the closest big room, main room, to that entrance, couple different angles. And then I sprinkled in some close-up creative shots, highlighting some features of the home, like this island and lighting fixtures, this beautiful deep kitchen, sink. And then I made sure to have different angles of this kitchen and this breakfast nook and things like that. Now,
Hey, Taylor, can I stop you for a question? Can you hear me okay now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
It switched my microphone over on me before I realized it. So to answer your question to me, that video took me about 3 minutes. It was super easy, and just using that app to clip the front and back was super easy. Even I could do it, so that's good.
Yeah, good.
But we did have a question that I thought was a good one, especially with that awesome photo copyright class that you have. Jill asked, if you do have a lakefront property and you're listing it in the winter, but the seller has some awesome pictures of the beautiful summer lake, can you upload those into the MLS? And I thought you could kind of expand on that.
Yeah. So to kind of go off that lakefront property, I'm sure somebody who has a home with some of these extra selling features has photos that they're very proud of that they've taken of their pool or their garden or their lakefront. And then obviously the seasons make a big difference. So it's not that you don't want to use those photos. It's just about making sure that you have the shared copyrights to those photos before you put them in the MLS. So there's a document that is in Transaction Desk under My Real Sources forms that should be signed by the seller, because then he or she is licensing those photos for you to use in the MLS, which is required for your independent contractor agreement between you and your broker, and then your broker's agreement with the MLS. So kind of think of it as a food chain where whoever took the photo or clicked the shutter owns the federal copyrights to that 99 years after their death. So there's no getting out of it of them not automatically owning the copyrights. So then they have to license it to you and the broker legally through a form. And then with that, you have an agreement in place already with your broker. Your broker already has something in place with the MLS to be a member that they own the data. So if you never own the data up the food chain to begin with, then you're out of you're breaking laws, but also terms with My Real Source, as well as all of our syndication and licensing feeds and all these things. So yes, answer is yes, you can use those. Yes, I think it's a great idea to use them on a listing, especially in the winter if you're listing it and they have these beautiful photos. It's just making sure you get that document signed, and you can find that document once again in Transaction Desk in the My Real Source forms, and it'll be the recommended copyright document. And a lot of brokers have actually already added it into their listing packages. So if you maybe have missed it or something, some of them require it, some of them at least just have it in their listing packages. It'll be in there as well if that's something your broker implemented. All right, really good question though. So it's just that one little extra step, but in my opinion, it's worth it. I'm sure a seller is not going to care to sign over those shared copyrights to you so that you can promote their listing, of course. So now, couple different angles of the room. I don't want to spend too much on photos and everything because I do have a photography class that you guys can take where we go into techniques and all of this a little deeper, but really cover that main floor space, that main level, floor one if it's a 2-story, and then move up to the bedrooms, the bathroom with each bedroom, and then you're going to kind of complete the basement and then any exterior photos, so the backyard, and then conclude with all that warm and fuzzy stuff too, that maybe there was something you sprinkled at the beginning, but then you're going to conclude with like the community, if there's a pool in the community or a park or things are walkable or there's a lot of land, those kinds of things. But that does give me a reminder to mention that let's say you see photos of this really cute downtown, that their home is like 1 block from downtown. Well, you want to take those photos yourself, or you want to have photos that the seller has taken and then license them to you. You do not want to scrape them off the internet because that is a violation of copyrights. So if you are taking photos from, downtown community that they posted on their development site that you did a quick Google search and you're scraping those and putting them in the MLS, that is illegal. So, and it's mostly illegal because it's for commercial gain. That's where sometimes people get confused, is they think that, oh, people scrape stuff from the internet anyways, all the time. Like it's all public information or whatever. Well, there's a difference in the method in which you're using it. So if you're using it where you're altering it, you're changing anything from behind the scenes of the data, or if you are using it for commercial gain where you're going to make a profit off of this, then you just violated the fair use protection. Fair use is where you can use it for certain things, fall under it for like educational purposes and things like that. So if you do want to do other things to promote the property's photos and sprinkle those in at the end, which I recommend doing, just take your own, or make sure the photographer that you hire gets a couple, the seller has a couple that you can use, and then get that copyright document signed. And you won't have to worry about scraping and breaking any laws, trying to scrape from, Google or something. So once you have your listings in the suggested order, and you know the suggested order recommendation now, you can actually just drag and drop, which is really nice. So you can kind of get an idea of how you want this to look and how the experience needs to be. So you can drag and drop, and then you can kind of arrow through to make sure it's not jumping around or too confusing, because I know when I was looking for my home, that was one thing that really frustrated me, was I would get a listing that matched the criteria, and the agent that took the photos, this happened probably almost half the time, it would jump from room to room. I was so confused as to what room I was in. One time I had a listing come through and like the second photo was like this tight crop of a kitchen. And the kitchen was my style. I loved it. I was like, oh, this is really cute. And then start scrolling more, kind of jumped around, and then I see another kitchen. Well, after looking into it more, the first kitchen was like this little like bar kitchen that was in the basement. So not even wouldn't have been my main kitchen. It was very confusing. So some of this might seem like common sense to a lot of people that have been doing this and kind of have experience, but having the experience of being a buyer and looking at homes and seeing, you know, doing these classes and things, I see how unorganized a lot of photos sometimes are, and then some people got it down pat. So I like to just kind of address the order of the photos is very important from an experience as a buyer, doing justice to your seller, but also an agent trying to look for listings too. You know, they're looking at this and they're like, all right, is this the right fit for my client? I don't know. Okay, this is getting a little, and people now more than ever have a short attention span. You want to get their attention right off the bat, first 7 to 10 photos, and you don't want to have to make them think too hard, okay? And you want to have a floor plan too, because thank God now we have Cubicasa the last couple years. This makes all the difference as an experience, because when you didn't have the floor plan too, on top of all these photos being all mixed together, it gets a little confusing trying to piece everything together. And as markets change and we need to know how to market our listings better and do justice to the listing, these are some things that you can do moving forward. Once the order is set, you can hit this little red pen, and this allows you to crop or rotate. So sometimes people take photos with their phone. About half the time when I teach a class, about half the people use their smartphone. The rest either use a professional photographer, from my experience, for most of their listings, and a lot of them do already have like a professional level camera themselves, a DSLR camera. But when you take a photo with your smartphone, depending on how you hold the phone, it can, the orientation of the file can come in upside down. So having this rotating option is really there in case your file actually came in upside down. Sometimes that happens. And then there's also a captions and descriptions button. So this is where you can go in and you can add 25 characters for the label, and you have 255 characters in the description. So definitely worth taking the time to do this. It's all in the feed that we are able to send. So as long as the source that we're sending it to, which many of them do, will display it, then those captions and descriptions are going to be worth your time to add that at least a sentence pointing something out about the property, kind of giving it a little extra selling feature about that. The way I like to teach it is kind of think about if you were just walking next to somebody through the home and pointing out features of the home and, you know, why this would be nice to live here, what that experience would be. That's how you should be using the captions and the descriptions. Once you've set all your fields, you're added your promotional videos, as you can see right here, they would show up on the listing ticket. Go through your gallery of all your photos. You can then see the full detailed report and kind of how that's presented. Colleen mentioned this a little bit, but you can go in. This is where you can add your associated docs. So really easy. You can just upload that file. That'll be available. If you want to add that floor plan, you can do that there too. And then if you need to schedule an open house or a tour, it's really easy. You can go in and you can just hit add new, choose the date, choose the time, any comments that are relevant to the open house. And this open house, once it's published, will be available in the Market Monitor over here. It'll also be available under the search under open house and tours. So if somebody wants to run an open house, it's not going to go, it will be seen, as well as if they pull up the listing, there'll be a little icon that there's an open house this week on that property. So something that was added the last few years, already hard to believe, it's already been probably 5 years since this has been added, but we had Paragon add this live stream feature just to, one, at the time, this was when a lot of sellers were not wanting to do open houses. They were not wanting to have a ton of showings at the time because of the pandemic. So, but you still needed to market the property. And what we had them do was this live stream option where you could schedule an event on Facebook and then put the link in the open house promotion, so that on Saturday at 10 o'clock, you would go live on Facebook and they could click that link and you could talk about the house, you could walk through the house and do it live on YouTube. So it was kind of like, or YouTube or Facebook or wherever you want to do it. Some people use Zoom, some people used, there was one other one that was kind of popular for a minute there, but a lot of it was done live through Facebook. So you could schedule that, put that link in, people could join, and you could run a virtual open house for your seller. As you need to get more creative to market and bring exposure to your listing, it's not a bad idea to still consider that. Or if you have somebody who doesn't want a ton of people walking through their house, but they want to get some sort of exposure, that's an option for you too. Now, once your listing has been, all these steps have been completed, you can then go to either save as a partial, come back fresh, look at it fresh the next day right before it needs to go live, or you're ready, you're confident, hit save listing. When it's saved, it is going to be sent in the feed in all those ways that I explained earlier. So live in Paragon, all of our regional and our vendor right away. People are going to get alerted that it matched their criteria or a new listing hit the market. It's going to be within 15 minutes to a half hour of all of our data shares. So within 15 minutes to a half an hour, 97% of the state has access to this listing. And then within about 15 minutes to an hour, it's going to be out for the world. So you're going to see it on Zillow's and Realtor.coms and all of that. So now it's live. What do I do? Well, you'll get a congratulations email from us that says your listing is live, and now you have a single property website that you can promote. This is something that will be great to send to your clients, but it's something that you can share and promote on Facebook and social media about your new listing. So you'll get the email, it'll be a link to that site, but I'm going to show you guys this single property website that all our members have. Besides in the email, you will be able to find it on your listing. You'll see a little house with a check mark right here. Click on that. And we designed this because we were seeing so many of our members that were sharing their new listing because they were really excited or trying to promote an open house or something on their listing. And the problem is some of these sites, most of them, will not put your name and contact information right next to your listing. They'll be advertising from other agents that paid for that zip code. There'll be suggested listings that match this criteria or competitive listings or anything like that. If somebody inquires, it could go to a paid agent that paid to be inquired about that property, not you. So we did not like that. We want our agents to be able to, if that's what you want to do, that's up to you, but we want to be able to provide a tool that allows our members to promote their property themselves and that alone. So this single property website, we worked with a website developer to design kind of the layout and how it should behave. And as you can see, this is Maria's listing. It's got her name and her photo right off the bat, her contact information. There's no, Joe Blow over here as well. That's going to confuse the consumer. So you can go into the gallery, high resolution photos. What a cute house. If Maria would have added captions and descriptions, they'd be at that little bottom quarter of the photo roughly, and it would be transparent, minimized, just like if it was in the gallery view of Paragon. All of the information on the site is going to be what's relevant to a potential buyer. It's not going to be anything that's like buried within the MLS. It's icon based, it's the description, it's the specs of the house that somebody needs to know, it's the map, and then it's got the lead capture form right here. So if I filled this out, I can now reach out to Maria. She's going to get an email and a notification as well as a request for a showing. If I want to schedule a showing, it's going to notify her, then she can do her research to figure out how to go about doing that showing. Am I already working with an agent? Am I looking to work with her? How to go about doing that. It also has, when you have your listing, all of the social media integrations. So if you want to share it to Facebook, you can do that. What I recommend doing is making sure that you, let's go here. Okay. What I recommend doing is making sure that you share it on your business page first and then reshare it to your personal page. According to your terms with Facebook, when you create an account, that if you do anything for commercial gain, you will post it on a business page first. And that's just, you don't want your personal page or your Facebook page to get blocked and shut down and you lost all those connections because you violated the terms, which I've known that that's happened. I actually remember a brokerage that this happened to a few years ago. They got completely locked out of their Facebook page. They were using it for business, but it really was just a personal page, had its own login and all this stuff. So, but besides that, what's really nice about the business page is it allows you to, get followers on there that maybe you don't want on your personal page necessarily. You can advertise from here. You can see analytics on the property, and you can boost, you can do all that kind of stuff and organize, create ads. But you'll want to add 1 to 3 sentences about the property with a call to action. So for here, it was just this call to action was, you'll appreciate this brand new cement driveway, 2-car garage, enhancing the home's curb appeal and convenience. Seize the opportunity to make this your remarkable property your own. So little small sentence at the end, just saying, give me a call if you have any questions, schedule your showing today. Don't miss the opportunity to, get this home. When you share this, now you can just hit the share button and then post that to your personal page. And what that's going to do is it's going to always come from the original source, which is going to be the business page, but now it went in the feed of all of the people that you know on your personal page. So you're getting double the eyes. Maybe some same people are seeing it twice, but mostly you're going to be getting double the exposure on that listing. Plus maybe pay $20 for a boost. It'll find people that, in the area that maybe are looking. You can kind of set those parameters of who to advertise to. So once you've shared once your listing's been live, you get your single property website, send that over to the seller, post it on social media, get it out there. But how do you know how it's performing? What if your seller wants to know, all right, Where are all these sites that it's going? That was that document that Colleen showed you. You can show them that. Well, how's it performing? Well, I want to share it on my page and this and that. Tell them to share it from your Facebook business page, or you can send them the link. But also, let me go in as Maria, since we used her listing as an example. Also, you can send this listing statistics. This is a brand new product that we just brought on board. You can find all of your, oh, I went to the wrong thing, sorry. Property links. So you're going to go under resources, property inventory links. When you go to property inventory links, that's where you'll also see the whole list of all your single property websites. So if you have 5 active listings right now, you can find all 5 of them without having to search them individually in Paragon, pull them all up in this view, and you can pull up that single property website. Bam, right here. You can send it over to your seller. You can promote it from here. But the new thing that we recently added is listing stats. So you can send these stats to your seller and also educate yourself. So from here, you can see how this site is performing on Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, the single property website, and coming soon, hopefully in the next couple weeks, we're going to have all of Paragon and My Real Source tracked in here too. Because a lot of times people, you can say, you give them that document that Colleen showed is really helpful too, because then they know all these eyeballs from the MLS and agents and all of that are being seen, but they're also being seen on all these other sites that your broker participates with. Share that, but now you can go in and be like, see, this is, how come it hasn't sold yet? Or do we need, how many people are really seeing this listing? Well, let's go in and let's look at the stats from Realtor.com. We've had 412 page views total since this listing has been live. You can break it down. Each site has its own summary. What happens is you can send this link right now to your seller. If they have access to this link, it's going to be updated. What we're working on, in addition to having all of Paragon and My Real Sources stats fed into this too, we're working on having an automation feature. So you can link it to a contact. There'll be a button where you can then hit share and it'll link it to a contact. And then it will send them weekly an updated report that looks like this. So they'll see this report, they'll know how their listing is performing. So you can set it to, every Thursday or something, that this is when they get the listing stats report. So this is something new we just released the end of last year. It's brand new. We developed this from our own developer. This is not a third-party product or anything. This is a My Real Source exclusive tool that we built and made, just like our single property website. So if you have any ideas about it or something that you would like to see, go ahead and let us know, because we can make this product all that we want it to be, of course, like within reason. And it's still a work in progress. Like you can see, we don't have Paragon yet, but it's coming soon. We don't have automation yet, but it's coming soon. So these are all things that are in the works of being built in the features of it right now. So,
Taylor, could you show
what questions?
There is. I was just jumping in when you started to talk. Sorry about that. Could you show one more time how they get there from the beginning?
Yeah. All right. So your listing is live, okay? And now you're ready to share the single property website and get over that listing stats and tell your seller, hey, you should be watching this through the week, and then here's your listing. Don't be sharing it on all these other sites, because it's not gonna, this is gonna be the better site to use. One stop, go into resources. Under social media lead gen, you'll see property inventory links right here. And then a list of all your listings will be there. So everything that's pending and everything that's for sale. And then you can open up the single property website by clicking on the address. It'll load that site for you. But now you also want the stats on the property. You hit listing stats and it'll open up that report. This is the general summary report, but if you want to dive in deep to a specific site and get those analytics, you can do that too. But it has your branding, it has your contact information, and it's only about that property. And that is for the listing activity summary stats, and that is also for your single property website. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. It's a lot of information in this class, but if you can take away half of it, then I think that you're going to do pretty darn good.
That's awesome. I got one last follow-up. We said we'd also show you the reverse prospecting.
Oh, yeah.
And the price analytics. So I asked Mary Rose on our quick break if I could showcase her listing. So we'll do this in about 30 seconds because I know we ran a little bit over, but let me show you where to go. A lot of people aren't aware that there is a new icon that now appears. Can you see that, Taylor? Can you see that? Mary Rose, perfect. New icon appears. It's called Connect. And what you're going to see is basically more and more you're going to see that the desktop version and the mobile version of Paragon are starting to come together. They're going to look more and more over the next couple of years, so don't panic. However, a lot of the new functions are now in Connect. So the one we're going to focus on right now is reverse prospecting. Used to hate it, now I love it. I think it's incredible. So I want to show you exactly how it works. You're going to click Connect. This is a great way to see how many people, how many agents have actual prospects that are set up in the system that match your listing. So I'm just going to go ahead with this. So all you're going to do is you're going to go into Connect right from your dashboard. You can do this on your phone or your dashboard as we're doing here. And I'm going to go into my friend Mary Rose's listings by just clicking over here on listings. And she wants to see how many eyes, how many people are set up in the MLS within the last 6 months that match her listing, especially if it's a new listing. So I'm going to go to published because we're going to do something with this listing. So this happens to be her brand new listing in Roseville. And what do you want to do is I want to see, do we have a lot of people? Are they getting it in the Collab Center? Are they getting it in their saved searches? So I'm going to click on reverse prospecting. This is a great one to use, and thanks, Mary Rose, for volunteering your listing. She has 136 prospects, meaning 136 people were sent her listing. You can see when they received the listing, and what I like about this is you can actually see if a prospect has favorited the listing. Some agents have multiple prospects that they've set up that would match, and these are people who are actually getting Mary Rose's listing delivered to them and when it was delivered. Now, the cool thing about this, and I don't see one on here, I was hoping to kind of show it, but if they favorite a listing, a lot of times I'll tell my clients just favorite it when you get it in the Collab Center because it shoots it back to you as the agent. If an agent favorited the listing, you will see that. And what that means is, so let's use Tony Haddad from my office. Let's say it went to Tony's prospect. Now, of course, I don't know the name of Tony's prospect, but if Tony's prospect got it and he clicked the heart, meaning that it favored it, then Tony immediately gets that alert. I like that I now can see that as the listing agent. If I get a lot of thumbs, okay, here's one. So Lori had an agent who didn't care for that listing. She didn't want to keep it in her profile. So I can see that too. So if I have a listing and I got a lot of people who reject it, I know it might be time for me to either adjust that price or take another look at maybe the photos that we've used, kind of review that listing. Mary Rose's last listing that she let me borrow for the class, it was kind of an interesting story. She was getting ready to take one offer, but that very day that I showed her this new tool, there was a heart next to a prospect who had just received it that morning. So she could reach out to that agent and let them know, hey, we've got an offer. If you're going to get your people in to see it, now is the time. So you can actually send a message to the agent directly. So if I just want to send this to Julian Lira here, and I want to only send it to him, I could go ahead and hit this email button. You could put in links to maybe a feature sheet you created. Maybe you just reduced the price. Maybe you just want to get some more word out to the agent of all the features of this house. Maybe I create great feature sheets in Canva. I put the link to it right in here, and then you can send it. Now you could do it to one agent, or if you don't individually click anyone, you could do it. You could do it to multiple agents, by the way, or you could send it to everyone that falls in your reverse prospect list. But what I like about this is these agents have set these contacts up within the last 6 months. I can see when it went out to them, and I can customize a message. What was a little shocking for my own listing, the interesting thing is there were 21 agents in my own office that had prospects that matched my listing. If nothing else, it allowed me to pick up the phone or at the next sales meeting, talk to them about that listing and the client that they had set up. Again, you don't know the client name, but when they receive the email, they will have that prospect number, and they can actually click on it and go right into the client they have set up. So it's a very cool system. It's much better than the old way of prospecting. By the way, it also keeps track of every single email that goes out. And why that's important is Mary Rose might send it out to all of these people today. Everybody, one of these agents might get it. But tomorrow, somebody new might have set someone up. So how do I know? Did I already send it to this agent? Well, right over here to the left, there is a little kind of like a file folder that says My Content. Do you know every single email that gets sent to your clients from the Collab Center, every single email that you may do reverse prospecting on, it's always tracked, and you can open up that email and see exactly who it went to and when. Then lastly, let's say this isn't a brand new listing. This one happens to be a brand new listing, but let's say Mary Rose is she's talking to her client. They're not getting a lot of showings. She's kind of wondering, should we reduce the price? So we're getting those calls a lot right now, right? We want to show them how many eyes we're getting in on them with Taylor's great tool, but maybe they're actually talking, maybe they're looking at this listing, and she wants to know if she reduces the price just a little bit, will it bring her a lot of new eyes? Now, what's funny, in my last example, we reduced the price $5,000. We got 32 new prospects who it matched. So that was definitely worth it. Other times you might reduce it $5,000, you might get one. So it depends on which price range you're generally in. But when you open up that listing in Connect, if you go to the little menu dots right over here to the right, you're going to find a new price analysis tool. So let's say Mary Rose wants to know, is she in the sweet spot? Does she have enough eyes? So right now we know there's 138 people that it physically got sent to. Well, what happens if she drops it to $199? Would she get a lot of new views? Now, Mary Rose, don't panic. I'm not really changing the price of your listing. I'm just doing kind of an analysis here. So I'm just putting in that new price, recalculating. And let's see how many new eyes. 194. So just bringing it down that 10,000, she did pick up a few new buyers. Is it actually worth it? Obviously, if you're picking up 30, 40 new buyers, it certainly brings a lot more weight. Now, if she decides she wants to apply that new price, she can. I won't do that, so don't worry, Mary Rose. But if I want to go ahead and just kind of show that seller what would happen here if we just dropped it a few thousand, would you get a lot of new? Sometimes that's the winner, right? Just showing them how many more eyes they would get. So I just wanted to show you those couple new tools that are available. Again, to get to those, you've got to go in through the Connect icon, which now appears right on your dashboard. All right, that's all I got. Taylor, are you still with me?
I'm still there. Hi.
All right, well, I know we ran a little bit over. There was a lot of new stuff that we wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to look at. So thanks for hanging in there with us. But I enjoyed teaching this class with you, Taylor. There will be another survey that we're sending out. If you've got any last minute questions, go ahead and throw those in. But we'd love your feedback. It's a lot to get in a class, but we certainly appreciate taking, it takes about 1.5 minutes to fill out the survey. Let us know what you thought. If you have any additional questions, be sure to add those in there too.
And remember, it will be recorded. So if there's something that you missed or you don't remember where we went to do that, then it's going to be on our YouTube channel.
All right. Sounds great. Have a great day, everybody. Stay warm.
All right. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.